Let me first start by thanking each of you for coming here today on what marks our Canon Capital Partners inaugural investment symposium. The topic of today's luncheon, as I'm sure you're all aware, is the professional athletes and high net worth individuals' role in community-based investment. This symposium, the reason why we're gathered here today, it represents the convergence of a number of factors central to who Canon's principles are, both professionally and personally. Given our position at the nexus of both the investment and sports industries, combined with our personal interests as African American men as it relates to bettering those communities that we grew up in, we see a great opportunity to create value for all of our stakeholders. Traditionally, financial investing and the creation of economic value have been viewed as activities separate and distinct from efforts to create social value and positive impact. Canon Capital Partners is a registered investment advisory firm servicing the needs of high net worth investors, both individuals and institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my pleasure to introduce to you the moderator for the inaugural Canon Investment Symposium, Carlos Watson.
Thank you so much. Like everybody else, I'm excited to be here. I think we're going to have a great afternoon. I know we're going to have some sparks fly in just a minute. We've got a great panel as we talk about whether or not athletes and other high net worth individuals should have a duty to be and actually can do a superior job of leading us in terms of community investment.
The purpose of this event was to bring together the key stakeholders around what we at Canon Capital believe what is a critical discourse as it relates to community-based investing. In attendance, we had athletes, entertainers, business owners, as well as other key stakeholders in the broader community to engage in this discourse, identify the opportunities, and now that it's over, execute on the plans that were identified.
Is it true that a lot of athletes are stepping up and investing, or is it really just a handful and we're lucky enough to know a couple of them, whether it's Ronnie or Magic or others, but the truth of the matter is most aren't, and they're investing their money personally and otherwise?
Well, I take my hat off to Ronnie and Magic and others because I think they kind of set a standard, and they've encouraged me, and as a consequence I've attempted to encourage our players. There are many projects being administered and invested in by NBA basketball players, and the union itself has sort of taken an aggressive posture in that regard. And we purchased property in Harlem that we're renovating, and we've actually assisted ball players. We've got a group right now that's doing a $250 million project in downtown Durham, North Carolina.
Ronnie, when I think about you, when I think about Magic, maybe a couple other guys, is there a common trend among those athletes who do decide to do what might be called community investing?
Well, no, if you look back, and we can go back to Willie Davis. I mean, Willie Davis here in Los Angeles was able to put together a distribution relationship with Miller. And you can go down the list of athletes that have taken that lead, they've made those type of investments, and they put together those type of businesses. Magic Johnson has done a number of things, but Dr. J,
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. I mean, we can go down the list of athletes that have done wonderful things in the community.
I agree with Ronnie. I think, I'm not clear that there's an obligation by any group of individuals to invest. I'd like to look at it as an opportunity. So I'm excited that we have here together BEC, Canon Capital, and athletes who see an opportunity to leverage these banking funds.
Jesse Jackson famously said in the past that sometimes you need both tree shakers and jelly makers. And so, you know, Lynn, it sounds like part of what Robert's suggesting is that we need more organizations that are ready to move forward on these commitments, but that we might need some tree shaking as well.
No, I think that's absolutely correct. The BEC was organized principally to shake those trees, if you will. Because at the end of the day, you may have the greatest market, the greatest business plan, the greatest product, if you will, but if you don't get access and get attention, nothing happens, if you will. I met Trey, I want to say it was in '98, as a result of Maxine Waters and Barbara Lee, my congresswoman, asked me to go to New York to Reverend Jackson's Wall Street Project. Meet Trey, and Trey says he's a big fan of Ronnie Lott. I said, okay, I know Ronnie. Hooked him up. The next thing I know, a deal's been done. It's all about the relationship, and unfortunately, Ronnie sees what's happening in the marketplace.
Canon Capital Partners and what they're trying to accomplish is, one, giving people advice that allows them to understand how they can move their portfolio or their investment portfolio moving forward. Two is what I like about Canon Capital is their initiative in terms of providing the best of breed products. That's a very difficult task to be able to accomplish. So having the ability to provide that type of access, as well as the ability to give you advice that can help you move your investments forward, is unbelievable.
430 players earned $2.1 billion for this past season. The league is 85% black, so you take 85% of 2.1 billion, and that's what a group of maybe 350 black basketball players earn. So they earn in excess of $1.6 billion. Salaries alone. And that doesn't include anything they've done off court.
The Negro Industrial Economic Union that Jim Brown formed, and it's always amazing whenever you see it. It's a clip of about 5 seconds of these guys standing around, Russell, Bobby Mitchell. I mean, it's a wonderful moment where there's actually a business in Cleveland where they said, this is what we're going to do. They understood at that moment the power that they had, but even at that moment in the 60s, the most powerful political moment we had, they could not move the ball much further than among themselves. And among themselves, they didn't have as much money as a single athlete does today.
Why hadn't we thought about forming banks? It was something that, for whatever reason, never entered my mind. It was something that I thought was just beyond the scope. But it wasn't until it was 4 years ago when Bob Ganeza called me, flew back to New York City and says, look, the government's going to force one of the banks, major banks, to kind of divest itself of some holdings. And I want to know, can you take over 4 banks? He scared me to death.
Why spend all this energy and time focused on the athlete? Because everybody's chasing the pretty girl. There's some other girls out there that we need to be, so we need to be.
There's some other pretty girls. That's what he meant to say.
Yes.
That's what he meant to say.
That's what I meant to say, yeah.
I think the biggest takeaway is having the ability to today look out 5-10 years down the road, because Ronnie's right. I always focus on what's the end game. But part of that entails vision. And I will tell you, I've been practicing law for 15 years now, 13 years at Wilson Sonsini, and many of you may be familiar with the firm. But I will tell you, in one generation, at the outset of that firm, you could sit not only just the partners, you could sit the entire firm around table 4 here, okay? And inside of one generation, there are now 600 lawyers spread throughout the country, and eventually it'll be international. Point being, it's all about how big you think and whether or not you believe what you are thinking is possible. You know, I sit here and I look at this event and I think about Canon Capital. And unbeknownst to a lot of folks, Canon Capital hasn't been around 5 years. It's been around less than that. But the people that make it up are professionals who've been around and done things a long time. They think big. This is a big event. We've got world-class people in front of us talking to us about issues that are cutting edge. But it all comes back to Canon Symposium.
My name is Dana Davis, and I have a different capacity I'm in player development with the NBA Memphis Grizzlies. So I see these players every day, and Billy knows the trials and tribulations we go through. But we have to change their mindset. We have to get the programs, the Ronnie Lotts, the Lawrence Vanderbergs, whoever doing financial things, the Canon Enterprises, to come in and speak to these players, because I've heard everything from, man, I got $50 million. You think I need to go back to school? All I'm worried about is I call my accountant, I got money in the bank.
Those of you who don't know him, he's the Chief Operating Officer of Canon Capital, a man who's made this happen, a man of whom I'm envious because he's lived in what my mom says and what I agree is the most beautiful city in the world. He lived in Cape Town for a half dozen years, starting businesses over there as well. And so I wanted to make sure that if you don't already know Darren Hickman, who's the tag team partner with Trey Bird making this happen, that you all give him a round of applause.
As other people have given me opportunity, I feel I need to now be the shoulders for someone else. And I think if we all take that approach, whether it be VC, venture capital investing, whether it just be helping another child learn something, I think with the athletes, that will begin to change the mindset. We're all standing on shoulders, and as a result, we have the responsibility to be shoulders for other people.
Today's event was one of those events where all of us were able to benefit. All of us are now better for it, and I'm hoping that we continue to have platforms like this, because it allows us not only to see the possibilities, but also achieve the opportunities.
The event was really a first of its kind in terms of an investment company hosting individuals that were focused on this issue of athletes reinvesting in their communities.
Well, I think Canon Capital recognizes that there's a big opportunity to marry the need for community investment with athletes who are looking for smart guidance. And I think their opportunity over the next 10 to 20 years is substantial. As many people know, athletes, particularly African-American athletes, command north of $4 billion in annual income from their sports, not to mention what they get from endorsement deals. So I think there's a big opportunity for Canon Capital in the years ahead.
In fact, what we at Canon Capital are doing is developing an asset allocation model, not to include simply the traditional asset classes, cash, stocks, and bonds. We're actually including a portion of that asset allocation catered toward community-based investing.